Bitcoin in El Salvador. Now we are going to have a really interesting talk, but before, just to let you know, to remember, to recall that we are going to El Zonte tomorrow. I really deeply recommend you all guys to go there because El Zonte is like the pinnacle of all the Bitcoin stuff that is happening here in El Salvador. So remember that tomorrow we are going to be there. And the talk that we are going to have is with Leo Wandersleb, that he is the mind behind Wallet Scrutiny. That is a really great website and a really great resource to know more about the tools that we daily use to interact with Bitcoin, so-called wallets. So the talk is going to be the wallets we use, what could possibly go wrong, with Leo Wandersleb that is already here. So enjoy this talk, and thanks a lot for being in Adopting Bitcoin.
Hello, hello. Yeah, as already introduced, I'm Leo Wandersleb, and I'm a mathematician from Munich, and I worked for a major Bitcoin wallet for many years, 4 years as the release manager, and there I saw many issues with many wallets. And that's why 3 years ago I decided to found a project to scrutinize those wallets we use. So as a Bitcoiner, we usually have to manage those Bitcoins somehow. We have to get them somewhere and store them for short-term, long-term, for spending. And all those tools like the exchanges and the apps on our phones and maybe the paper backup are all referred to by many people as wallets. So there's not really a great definition of what a wallet is, or of course I do have my definition, but how to convince somebody, some of those thousands of wallet providers, that their product is not a wallet. So we look into whatever claims to be a Bitcoin wallet. So the first thing when you go to an exchange, some try to sell you something they call Bitcoin, like there's 50 tokens that go by the name Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, whatever, you know those ones. But in total there's more than 50 at least. And some people fall for it. If it's cheaper, why not buy Bitcoins for cheap? And yeah, then there, of course, many go for shitcoins, but yeah, the tendency to not want that, or still people don't know that you can buy less than one Bitcoin, so yeah. So there is fake wallets, so many of the good products in the market, they get copied, and it's actually a lot. So we often search for wallets that claim to be Bitcoin wallets, and then we find familiar looking products under some different developer, for example on Google Play. So Emanuel Bronstein, for example, he does a lot of work at getting those products on our, or those supposed wallets on our platform, and he found some 700 Android products, Android apps, and by the time we actually wanted to import them into the project, they were almost all gone. So it was probably most of them fake. I mean, he was looking for fakes, so it was not a big coincidence. So they were all small, like 5 downloads, maybe 0 downloads, etc. But people fall for those. So we here again we had some support feature on our platform, and people were contacting us to, hey, how can I get my money out of this and that wallet that no more exists? And we just could tell them, yeah, that was a fraud. They took off with your money. So, wait, beware of fake wallets, beware of custodians. So, yeah, we all know about FTX, and before that, many other instances of products that people were using to get their bitcoins or to get some extra yield on their bitcoins. And yeah, when these things happen, all the people here in the room know it's a bad idea to not self-custody. But yeah, when people barely know anything about Bitcoin, they see, oh, it's a wallet, and they don't give a second thought about what actually protects their Bitcoin. So they think it's all the same, so they just go with whatever looks the fanciest or what has the biggest budget to advertise it to them. So, okay, it's they sponsor whatever, some advertisement in a big building, so that must be the real thing. But yeah, an actual self-custodial wallet is not really making much profit by itself, so okay, we can get into that later. So, oh yeah, that was the fake custodian. So, sorry, I was jumping ahead there. But so there is apps that don't actually have Bitcoin, so they let you only speculate on the value of Bitcoin. So if you buy Bitcoin in Robinhood, then there is no guarantee or not even a promise that Robinhood is acquiring Bitcoins for you or has it backed. So they just let you speculate on the value of Bitcoin, and you cannot send the Bitcoin out, you cannot deposit Bitcoin into your Robinhood account. Some might have started with that. I think PayPal allows you to send and receive if you are in the right jurisdiction. But yeah, again, that's not really what a wallet is. It's under their control, and they don't have even any claim about full reserve or anything. So the custodians, they are not much better, as we have seen over and over again. And yeah, many examples from early on. Hacks, owner disappearing, and only he knew where the keys were. So when they say KYC, they may know your customer, but I think we should all better know our custodians, because if you trust your money with them, they can just run away with it. And they try to be more and more transparent. They do proof of reserve. Hello? They do proof of reserve maybe, but do they do proof of liabilities, and are the institutions they gambled with first in line, or are you first in line? Who's reading the small print? So custodians are always a huge problem when you store your Bitcoins there for some extra yield. So the percentages here that I'm mentioning, they are from Android apps. So 72% of those were not even self-custodial. They were, in my estimate, not even trying to be wallets. They were bank accounts or fakes or something else. Yeah, and those other 38%, many of them have other issues. So when you are your own bank, then you want to know what happens if the app that I'm using stops working. Is there a way to recover my funds anyway? Is it working with those 12 words or 24 words? Is it an open standard, or do they only pretend to work that way? Or those things have to be investigated, and we need some way to communicate it to the users. What are wallets that actually honor those standards, so you're still secure with your backup, even if the provider of that wallet goes under or disappears. So there is many apps, far too many apps that are closed source. So there's no way to verify that this app is actually self-custodial. And if it's self-custodial, then you don't know if it is sending maybe a copy of your keys to some server. And that is a huge problem, because in many jurisdictions, custodians are held to a much higher standard than app providers for self-custody. So if you want to scam your users, you better claim that you don't have their money, but because if you claim you have their money, they will do much more due diligence than if not. And we found many products, like there was examples where you could do your 12 words backup and you could do a transaction, but then when you looked up the transactions you did, whatever the other guy received, you saw that that transaction was batched with 100 other transactions. So it was just some custodial wallet, and the wallet or the app that you were using was just making some show, like the 12 words didn't have anything to do with the wallet that you were using there. They were showing you a balance for the time being, so hopefully many people pick up on that wallet. And in the end, nobody knows, or nobody knows where's the money once they pull the plug and go away with all the money. So then the other apps had source code available of this list that I'm going through here, but 3% we didn't manage to compile from the source we found. Another 3% can be compiled into a Bitcoin wallet, but how do we know if it is the same wallet that they distribute by other means? So when you go to Google Play and you install an app, how do you know that this app has anything to do with the source code they are publishing? So being open source is maybe just nice to convince people to install the app. So if we all would agree that open source is the standard and closed source, no way, custodial, no way, then still they could just publish open source and release apps with a tiny one-line change that still sends a backup to their servers. And that might be even not only scammers, like often people think that this was something that the release, like when you install an app, you don't think much about the process, how this app got into the Play Store or into iTunes or wherever you download the binary. But this is always some process by which a maintainer has to upload it somewhere, and for 99% of all those products, there is no good scrutiny for what the binary actually consists of, or what is in the binary. Yeah. So if the release manager is a scammer, has some gambling losses, then even his boss, who finances all the wallet development, might be a good guy, but the developer who has his hands as the last one on the product could steal all the money of all the users. And that's the reality for so many products with hundreds of millions of dollars in them. Yeah. And then there's finally, at least on the Play Store, a 1% tiny minority of products that are reproducible. And reproducibility, binary transparency is something that is not directly clear. It's when you try to verify a binary, you cannot just compile it back into the source code and compare the source code with the source code on GitHub. You have to do it the other way around. You have to compile what's on GitHub and try to reproduce what there is on the Play Store, for example. And by the way, we are not only looking into Play Store, but that's where I started because I was an Android developer, Android wallet developer before. We now also look into hardware wallets, into iPhone, into Bearer tokens, and try to cover it all. Desktop will be a big challenge because exactly this identifying which binary you are talking about is even much harder with desktop. When you say Bitcoin Core is reproducible, then that doesn't mean much when people get the binary from some random place, and when people install it from their Linux distribution, then there's other technicians that compiled it, and the accountability is not really clear to the users. So Bitcoin Core is really spearheading the effort at doing reproducible builds, and that's great. And institutions hire technicians, and technicians, of course, know how to check the signature, figure out if their chain of trust is fine with whoever released this, or they can reproduce it themselves, or they can review if at least some other people reproduced the build, and so they can make pretty sure that they are running the right software. But for the normal user, they just look where it is the easiest to get the software, and they run whatever they find. So another image for how reproducibility works, or an analogy, they say you can't unscramble an egg, or imagine you're allergic to nuts and you want to eat banana bread. You cannot know if there's nuts in this banana bread you can buy at the corner, and if the salesperson says no, it has no nuts in it, and you're really allergic to it, you want to make really sure. And if the world would work that deterministically with real-world products, we could reproduce this banana cake by following very exact to the microgram instructions on how to bake that banana bread, and then put it under the electron microscope and see if it has an exact match with the one that we are trying to buy. And then we would know, okay, if the ingredients didn't contain any nuts, then we can sure this is fine. But in the real world that doesn't work. But with software we can do exactly that. We can just reproduce those apps in that case, or firmware and so on. Then, yeah, if you're dealing with mobile wallets, they often are on auto update. So please, if you're worried about your favorite wallet turning bad with the next release because some bad guy puts a gun to the head of the release manager, then switch off auto update, because they all come with auto updates. And how do you know what you installed? Because those stores, they can slice the market by country, by screen size, by cell phone version, and so on. Luckily on Android you can fingerprint the app that you have installed and compare that fingerprint to something that was verified. A process that sadly is not being talked about. It's nobody cares what's the app they are really running on their phones. So the scrutiny is very much lacking in that space. And then, of course, you have the operating system, or maybe you run your wallet in your browser, the browser in your operating system, the operating system on a chip, on memory that might be compromised, and so on. Yeah. And yeah, supply chains. And even if reproducibility and everything works great, then there's a big problem of who reviews the code. And honestly, I think the only product that is heavily reviewed is the Bitcoin Core wallet. Like all of those other products, I mean, the major hardware wallets, they get a lot of attention, especially the open sourced Trezor, for example, because there is more than one company using the software. It's open source. Other companies can use the same software. So those other companies, engineers, they care about changes, and they evaluate if Trezor is doing something wrong, or if other companies contribute updates to the software, then Trezor will not merge those changes easily. So the smaller the product, the less scrutiny it gets, and it's really only a handful of products that actually get a lot of review. Yeah, that's the end of my talk, and yeah, I'm open for one question, I guess. Yeah, what's that?
Are there any hardware wallet offerings that have reproducible builds for the software involved with
Are
those?
there any hardware wallets?
Hardware. Yeah.
Oh yeah. There are hardware wallets that are reproducible, and probably much more as a percentage than on Google Play, for example. But it's much harder to test for it because the build process for Android wallets is there's like 3 frameworks and you just press the same buttons for all of them. But for hardware wallets, the tools are every time a bit different, and it's quite some research to figure out how to compile those and how to keep up with the new releases, because wallet scrutiny also has to check every new release. It's not like a stamp of approval that is valid forever. Like some platforms, they say, okay, that wallet is reproducible, but they test it only at one particular time and don't follow up. But yeah, many of them are. Check out wallet scrutiny to see which ones.
Okay. Yeah, just a thought, it would be awesome if you could maybe rank them by,
I rank the hardware wallets randomly within every verdict because, yeah, I can say something bad about every wallet, and when people ask me which wallet should they use, I always have no answers. Any other questions?
So what wallet do you use then?
I was contributor to a wallet and I use that wallet, but I would not recommend it.
So would you say that there's a need for some kind of auditing service, or, I mean, you're obviously doing this for the love of Bitcoin, but I could imagine that companies, as they grow larger, kind of have or develop a need in displaying their fitness for market and for security. So is that something that you provide as a service or are looking into, or is it just if I'm unlucky, I get a bad review, or is there any sort of communication back and forth?
Great question. So we are looking at 4,000 products out there, and it's 99% that are angry at us because they are not in the top category. So not really that bad, because some are really cooperative, but we have to open the process to more engineers, and I hope that we can motivate wallet developers to hopefully reproduce other wallets, binaries, and get much more people involved in the whole process. And we are working on tools to make this something rewarding for the wallet that does this review for other products too. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. But the code review part, I was thinking about bug bounties for big wallets or something, but that's also like an attack on them, and they are not very happy about others financing to poke holes at their products. So if you have any ideas, it would be great, because this needs more scrutiny, but to get that scrutiny, people have to care. So I ask you all to spread the word about binary transparency, self-custody, all these things. No questions? Okay, thank you all, and bye.
No hay más preguntas. Okay. So there is not more questions. Thanks a lot, Leo, for being here. Wallet scrutiny is a really great resource. It's a really great way to know if your wallet is trustworthy, or if they are going to run with your Bitcoin. Not your keys, not your coin. No tienes tus llaves, no es tu Bitcoin.